Getting chilly, isn't it? Nearly winter, can't afford nothing. Better get a boost. I need a boost. You need a boost. We're not sure if these boosts work yet. They've only been tested on a couple of mice. Don't start questioning the boost. Get a boost. Hello there, you 5.9 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this great voyage towards illumination. Together we grow and we discover the invisible connections that exist between us all and prevent us from being divided by the powerful forces that want to turn us against one another. If you ain't subscribed yet, why don't you subscribe right now? You can see I'm teetering on the precipice of 6 million viewers for our channel. Once we have you lot all subscribing all nice, surely I'll feel better inside. Surely that will do the job. And if that don't do the job, how about a boost? A boost should make me feel a little bit better, shouldn't it? After all, the FDA, who are funded, 45% funded by the big pharmaceutical companies that they regulate, and Fauci, that guy's lovely, ain't he? Remember Fauci? Remember the parades? Remember the t-shirts? Remember the tattoos? Surely you're not questioning Fauci. Fauci, just he want to help. That's what Fauci want to do. He want to help. Let's have a look at Fauci. Have a look at him helping. Turn on the notification bell. Turn it on. It ain't hard. Get it done. Get that and then a boost. Do it whatever order you want, but for God's sake, do both.
Americans 12 and older should be able to start getting updated booster shots for COVID within days.
Oh, thank God. I was wondering I'd better get a boost. How many mice do we need to test this on before we can start getting boosts? We tested it on 8 mice. What do you want to do? 9 mice? How many mice do you want to trouble? Do you think I'm made of mouses?
That is after the CDC and the FDA gave approval this week to new boosters from Pfizer and Moderna.
Is that person in the picture doing a sort of like, yeah, rock and roll, let's get a booster, dude?
That will hopefully provide more protection against the latest variant this coming winter.
Look at how they have to prevaricate on the mainstream media. Well, hopefully, we don't know. I certainly want to guarantee it. That's illegal for me to guarantee it, particularly when it's been proven scientifically that it'd be unwise. How many mice have they done now? Shit, we still only have 9 mouses. Listen, hopefully, in the winter, maybe, fingers crossed, touch wood, lickety spit, the booster will be better. Actually, don't lickety or spit. Is that proven anymore? Oh, God. Just get a boost!
For the latest questions around this and more, I'm joined again by Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Oh, I made my tummy turn over seeing him then. I'm not claiming that I can recognize negative spiritual energy because that might make me look like a woo-woo nitwit, but I felt weird when I saw him.
He's the president's chief medical advisor.
Oh, good. Well, we've got a president, we've got a chief medical advisor. There's nothing to worry about here. There's no room for corruption. There's no room for dirty money.
Welcome back to the News Hour. So with the news that these new...
I have to keep saying everything's new, because otherwise I don't even believe that they are the news, even while they're on it.
Vaccines, boosters are now going to be available. There's understandable confusion out there about who should get them and when.
Yeah, it's so confusing, isn't it? Who should get them? Mice? People? Well, we only know for sure they work on mouses. But do mouses have jobs and money and stuff? That's the problem. Otherwise, we would just give it to mouses.
Is there a clear, simple rule of thumb that people should follow?
Yeah, give me your fucking money.
A clear, simple rule of thumb.
Now, the reason we've chosen to show you this clip on this channel is because what Fauci says now is actually quite measured and quite reasonable, and a couple of months ago would have had you dubbed a conspiracy theorist. He says that the booster shot is applicable probably if your personal risks and your familial circumstances warrant it. Almost as if the narrative has absolutely shifted now, to the point where someone who was the most vocal, adherent and advocate for vaccine efficacy is now being forced, advised, or is perhaps just inclined to offer a much more, I would say, responsible and appropriate set of instructions when it comes to these pharmaceutical measures. Almost like you can no longer say, well, just get vaccinated. Just get vaccinated. It's a solution to everything. Listen carefully to what he says and imagine he was saying this 6 months ago.
Well, if you look at the eligible, who is essentially approved by authorization and recommended by the CDC, it's just what you said, that for the Pfizer, it's 12 years of age and older, and for the Moderna, it's 18 years of age and older. The need for it clearly varies considerably depending upon one's risk. There would be certainly a greater benefit if you were an elderly person or a person who has an underlying condition.
For me, what Fauci's offering there is the approach that ought to have been taken for the entire duration of the pandemic. Why wasn't it? What questions remain? I suppose the most optimistic appraisal could be because they were waiting for the return of certain sets of data in order to make that assessment. But there is still, as you know, a lot of clinical data that is inaccessible. Why?
If you're a young, healthy person, the relative differential of the benefit might be less, but there would be a degree of benefit essentially for everyone. So the need to get it would certainly be weighted heavily towards those who have underlying conditions, who are elderly.
That sounds sort of like how the whole lockdown mandate masking situation should have been handled from the get-go. And even if this is just a progressing narrative that is emerging as a result of new data, I'd like a fucking apology.
But that doesn't mean that there's not some degree of advantage for anyone within the framework that the FDA approved and that the CDC recommended.
Perhaps you've got doubts about the FDA and CDC, given they keep bloody well changing their mind, and in the case of the FDA, are funded by the people they're supposed to be regulating. So let's get another take on this story. It's tough to have a sane political discussion in the United States these days when seemingly every matter of American life is filtered through the fervour of partisan polarisation. Just look at Anthony Fauci. We can acknowledge that the man had an extremely difficult job, especially in the early months of the pandemic, but that doesn't let Fauci off the hook. The fact is that throughout the pandemic, Fauci repeatedly gave the public faulty or misleading information. In a notorious episode, Fauci admitted to the New York Times he was setting and revising the threshold of vaccination needed for herd immunity, not based on science, but on his own calculation of the American public's appetite to get shots. It seems that there was some interpretive work done by Fauci and possibly other agencies within the United States governance system that was not scientific, that was simply opining. Opining by experts of whatever category you would declare them to be in, using your own sense of judgment, but not pure scientific data as we are led to understand it, more a set of decrees, opinions, preferences. That's not what we were being told when people were being called COVIDiots, when the unvaccinated were being condemned. Choices, of course, were made throughout the pandemic in what information to highlight, what information to ignore, whose interests to pursue, whose interests to negate. While the unvaccinated were being ignored, for example, no one was reported on the actions of for-profit healthcare institutions that would later lay people off for not being vaccinated while simultaneously reintegrating healthcare workers that they knew had been infected with COVID. A lot of the time, the information didn't make sense. We need to investigate why this is the case. Fauci said, when polls said only about half of all Americans would take a vaccine, I was saying herd immunity would take 70-75%. When the newer surveys said 60% or more would take it, I thought I could nudge this up a bit. So I went to 80-85%. I think the real range is somewhere between 70 to 90%. But I'm not going to say 90%. Oh, thanks for not telling the worst lie you could possibly tell. It's just interesting to note that there is another variable at work here, the opinion of Anthony Fauci and his own strategies for manipulating, by his own words, information and data in order to achieve the results he thinks are best. Now, what that does is it places, I think, more emphasis on our assessment and evaluation of Anthony Fauci's moral nature. There might be information about Anthony Fauci's moral nature that will alter our perspective on him. There might be books written about him. There might be a medical history with other pandemics, other serious and fatal viruses. There might be relationships with big pharma. All these things now come into the fold because it's not science anymore. It's opinion, strategy, manipulation, propaganda. Call it what you will. We all do that. But when we do that, we have to declare it. Fauci worried that using that particular figure might end up being discouraging for the public, he explained to the paper. It was emblematic of how Fauci saw his role, not of a scientist dispassionately doling out critical public health information, but increasingly as a political figure calibrating his advice to who was in power and what he felt the national mood was. He's not a DJ. I think now people are ready to get some really heavy beats. Okay, now let's spin those wheels, baby. You got me in the mix. Just tell us the truth and we'll decide. That's what is implied here, is a paternal relationship between those of us that are governed and those that do the governing. Many of you, Americans in particular, believe strongly in personal liberty. Elsewhere, there are people that believe strongly in community liberty. There are loads of faith-based community that want to make decisions that are informed by their spiritual experiences. All of this is negated because we were told flat out, you have to do this, otherwise you're killing little old ladies. You have to do that, otherwise you're irresponsible. We have to support key workers, now we're going to sack key workers. Maybe the reason so many things didn't make sense is because they were based on whimsy, preference, opinion, intuition, stuff that all of us use in our own lives, but we don't try and run countries based on it. So while in April 2020 he was telling Anderson Cooper the country really should be putting in place the kind of national stay-at-home order that other countries use to prevent mass death and infection, by that November, after the supposedly science-listening Joe Biden had won the election and had preemptively ruled out doing such a thing, Fauci suddenly preferred to not see us have to resort to a lockdown and that the country could turn this round without it. The information changed for political reasons. Ergo, COVID was political as well as scientific and medical. We were told it was not political. Those of you that like Donald Trump will know that during Trump's tenure, Joe Biden was like, well, we shouldn't be taking this vaccine. The vaccine might not work.
If and when the vaccine comes, and it's not likely to go through all the tests that needs to be and the trials that are needed to be done.
When we finally do, God willing, get a vaccine, who's going to take the shot? You can be the first one to say, sign me up.
Kamala Harris, I don't know that I would take this vaccine.
If Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Then when they're in power, suddenly this vaccine's a must for everyone. It's the must-have accessory of the summer. Either the vaccine works or the vaccine doesn't. I don't have an opinion on that. I haven't conducted any trials. I'll look at whatever data, I'll listen to the people that I trust, and certainly I trust you to make your own decisions. In particular, if the people that are charged with objectivity are in fact using preferences, opinion, and interpretation, why the hell should the rest of us be any different? When an epidemiologist and short-lived Biden advisor Michael Osterholm that November called for the nation to shut down for 4 to 6 weeks while financially underwriting workers and businesses, what had been the consensus liberal position when Trump had been president, Fauci used his platform to stop the idea in its tracks. Confusingly, months later, Fauci would praise Australia for its use of stay-at-home orders, but even that wasn't the most outrageous of his public interventions on policy. As activists and experts tried to drum up pressure on the administration to waive vaccine patent rights and so get more affordable vaccines in the hands of poorer governments, something the administration still has not done and reportedly didn't even really try to do, Fauci poured cold water on the idea. What explains Fauci's reluctance to put his considerable authority behind the waiver? One can only speculate whether it had something to do with his close relationship to oligarch Bill Gates, a prominent opponent of the idea, with whom the NIAID director admitted he spoke to every 2 weeks. Many people that feel that there was a for-profit motivation behind the vaccine mandates will be disheartened to learn that there is a relationship between Bill Gates and Fauci. Similarly, they will be concerned that nations that couldn't afford to pay for patents weren't granted access to the vaccine. Of course, Bill Gates would say, that's because they might not do it properly. They'll muddle it up, bungling it, all clumsy butterfingers vaccine makers. But some people might suspect that there's a profit motivation at play here, or other considerations. At any rate, if you have complete transparency, total candor, and real trust in science, these kind of anomalies would not occur. In fact, for anyone who bothered to read through the thousands of pages of Fauci's redacted emails that were released last year, it was impossible not to notice all the shoulder rubbing he did with corporate executives and other members of the country's richest circles. Rubbing shoulders like that, that's probably why he keeps catching COVID. The thing is, there's no need to paint Fauci as either a hero or a villain. He was put in a tough position by the pandemic and has no doubt made important scientific contributions over his long career. But we do have to acknowledge that, laudable motives or not, Fauci made serious mistakes over the course of the pandemic, including by his own admission, deliberately misleading the public on several key matters. We can debate whether it's the role of public health officials to massage science and health advice to their read of the political realities. Probably not, as it's adverse to most people's understanding of what science is, objectivity and repeatable data. But at the very least, having publicly admitted to misinforming the public and so discrediting himself as a messenger of cold, hard scientific facts, Fauci should have fallen on his sword and resigned. So what do you think? Do you trust Anthony Fauci? Do you think Fauci has other allegiances and interests? What do you make of the relationships that Fauci has with figures like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates? What does it tell us about the way that power operates? What does it tell us about apparent scientific objectivity? What does the constantly changing data around lockdowns, masks, vaccines, natural immunity, vitamin D. Tell us about the interests that were at work during the majority of the pandemic. What voices can we trust? Who can we trust in the mainstream media? Who can we trust in government? Who can we trust in big tech if their alliances seem to produce certain results consistently, particularly results that might be adverse to ordinary people, shall we say? Certainly there seem to be a lot of unanswered questions around Anthony Fauci and the pandemic at large, and I hope to continue investigating these matters with you. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this story. Let me know what you think it reveals. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these two. Give this video a thumbs up. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our vital content in case the algorithm's against us. If you want to see me in America, where I'm going to appear soon, sign up to our mailing list to have the live experience of this channel. More important than any of that claptrap though, please stay free.